The untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, they're still reacting to the aftermath of what took place between Charlo and Castano. There's a lot to dissect. In this case, we had Tszyu, one of Australia's very own, a top contender, one of the top young fighters in boxing right now, one of the top offensive young fighters in boxing right now. Just a really good fighter and someone that looks like he has a lot of promise. He's the son of a legend in Tszyu himself. So, he's got big shoes to fill. And right now, so far, he's progressing very well as a pro. He's coming off a win against, most notably on this past July 7th, earlier this month against Stevie Spark, knocked him out. Before that, he knocked out Dennis Hogan inside of 5 rounds. So, progressing really, really well as a professional. But obviously, Tszyu was watching last night's fight with a lot of intrigue because it was the undisputed fight between the two top fighters in his division in Charlo and Castano. And these are two potential opponents for him. So after the fight ended, he tweeted at Brian Castano because he thought Brian Castano won, and he also just happens to be the WBO mandatory challenger to Castano's belt, which he still holds. He said the following, I quote, "Congrats, Brian Castano. I'm ready when you are." So, he's pushing for that fight right away. And will he get the fight next? I'm not so sure. There's a lot of layers when it comes to Tszyu versus Castano. First and foremost, now with this fight being controversial, with it being a draw, with it now being a fight that is going to be in demand from the boxing public, we will more than likely see a Jamel Charlo Castano rematch because it's the biggest money fight for both of them next. So there's that. The only way that fight doesn't happen is if the IBF mandates Jamel Charlo to fight his mandatory challenger, Bakram Murdazaliev. I hate these European / Central Asian fighters' names, man. They're pretty difficult to pronounce. But we know the IBF has a long history of enforcing the mandatories. They don't play when it comes to enforcing the mandatories. So Charlo, it's very possible Charlo might be tasked with the possibility of either having to vacate his belt, his IBF title, or having to fight as mandatory. And should that happen, that would then open up the door for Tszyu to fight Brian Castano. So it might not be. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's unrealistic, but there is a path to the Castano fight for Tszyu. Although I will say right now it's slim, but there is a chance. There's a chance. What did they say in Dumb and Dumber? Jim Carrey. So you're saying there's a chance. But yeah, man, Tszyu, he's obviously been a top draw and a top ticket seller in Australia, and his team's gonna push for that fight to be in Australia on home soil. And when we talk about Castano, this is a guy that's been one of the best road warriors in the sport. When he was a contender on the come up, he fought a guy, Michael Soro, that a lot of guys weren't jumping up to fight. He went to France to fight him. He went all the way to Europe to France to fight Michael Soro, beat him in France. Just last night, fought Jamel Charlo in the state of Texas, which is like, you talk about pressure, you talk about having the odds stacked against you. Fight the hometown fighter or the A-side fighter in Texas. Fight a Texas fighter or Mexican fighter in Texas and have a close fight with them and see how that goes for you. Last night's fight was a clear win for Castano, and it still was a draw. So, he fought all odds against him. He's gone on the road before, so I don't see why he wouldn't go on the road to fight Tszyu if that became a possibility. And look, if that fight does happen, I think it'd be a good fight. I think it's a fight Tszyu can win because Tszyu, I think his style, Castano, will be a good style. Castano's gonna come forward. He's gonna press him. He's gonna be there to be hit. Obviously Castano's very defensively responsible. Last night, I said it many times, he looked like the Argentinian version of Marlon Stalin. Word to the Magic Man. He looked like Marlon Stalin the way he was shooting that steak knife sharp right hand, and then when going into the high guard and picking out the shots. Very, very Marlon Stalin-esque. So he's a very good fighter. very good pressure fighter. But even with him being a very good pressure fighter, he's still there to be hit. And Tim Tszyu, you know, you can make the argument that when he's on, he's one of the best offensive fighters, if not the best offensive fighter in this weight class. Obviously, it hasn't been tested against anybody at a level of a Castano, but Tim Tszyu is an incredible offensive fighter, and he's very strong. He's very sturdy. He's got good power, particularly in that left hand when he goes down to the body with that hook. You know, very strong, sturdy fighter Tim Tszyu is. So, you know, I listen. I think the 154-pound division, as bad as pissed off as I am about the, not pissed. I can't use that word no more. I don't get pissed off about boxing corruption anymore. As disappointed as I am with the decision last night, you know, I still think the 54 division is in a good place. You know, you got Tim Tszyu on the rise. You got you know, Luis Arias, who had a big win recently over Jared Erd. You have Jamel Charlo and Castano doing really well. There's good fighters. There's good fights and good fighters all up and down the 54-pound division. I don't think there's anybody at 54 who you could say is a definitive A-level fighter. I think there's a lot of B-plus guys, B-plus guys, B fighters, B-minus, C-plus guys, but no clear-cut definitive A-level fighters. That's why the 54-pound division is so interesting, because the belts keep changing hands because there's no truly dominant guy, and I don't think we'll get a truly dominant guy at 54 until like a guy like maybe like a Spence or a Crawford moves up, and then maybe we'll get a guy like that. But it is what it is, man. That's the news. Tim Tszyu's calling out Brian Castano for a fight next, and they're pushing for that fight next. So we'll see what happens, man. I think it'd be a good fight. Tim Tszyu's definitely one of the best contenders, best young fighters in the sport right now. But he hasn't done it at that level, and he hasn't done it in the States either. So. And I think if he fights Castano, even though they're going to push for the fight to be in Australia, I think the fight will be in America, because ultimately money talks and BS walks, and the money is always in America. So follow the money, and you'll know what's going on in boxing. But yeah, that's the news. Tim Tszyu calls out Brian Castano. What do you guys think about that fight? And what do you think about Tim Tszyu's chances against Brian Castano should that fight happen? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you take the time to subscribe. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Daniel. So until next time, take care, guys.